How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. I got a question for you. Did you hear that one of Andrew Cuomo and Kathy Hochul's former staffers is on trial for working for the Chinese Communist Party as a spy? Have you heard about that? Have you heard about Gavin Newsom's chief of staff, or at least staffer, arrested for political corruption? Did you know that Senator Tammy Duckworth has a staffer accused of pretending to be a lawyer to get an illegal alien out of an ICE facility? Have you heard about those stories? Have you heard about those? Here's MSNBC.
Now, when it comes to the actual sort of nuts and bolts of what's going on here, Mike Johnson's going to bring this to the floor next week for a vote. I think Thomas Massey is very right that once this actually gets on the floor, you're going to see more Republicans break with Trump, because this is going to be a very hard vote for them to take, no matter how much they're in support of the president, because this is something that Republican voters, again, it's the only thing that is more popular than Trump. But when it gets to the Senate, that's still a wild card. We know that there's two lawmakers, Rand Paul and Josh Hawley, who have already previously signed on with Democrats in favor of transparency to release all these files.
Oh, yeah, that's about Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah, just about Jeffrey Epstein. Federal officials arrested Dana Williamson, Governor Gavin Newsom's former chief of staff, Wednesday, in a public corruption probe that includes multiple charges of bank and wire fraud, according to a federal indictment obtained by the Sacramento Bee. Williamson, who left the governor's office at the end of 2024, is named along with Greg Campbell, Sean McCluskey, and two others on a conspiracy to commit fraud related to funds in a dormant political account of former U.S. Congressman Xavier Becerra. There are 23 counts in total. The 18 bank and wire fraud charges carry a maximum of 20 years in prison. Yeah. Becerra was the Secretary of Health and Human Services under Joe Biden. He's a former congressman. He was way out of his depth. And what I find very notable is how little media coverage there is. Now, the Sacramento Bee is covering it. It's a Sacramento story. Hi, KSTE. Williamson was the third chief of staff to Gavin Newsom. She had been a political consultant, was a senior aide to numerous officials. She's been indicted. Now, there's also Sean McCluskey. Sean McCluskey, what's so interesting, was Becerra's chief of staff at the time of the alleged conduct. And numerous stories are now coming out from Democrats about, oh, well, this is the sort of stuff we expected from Sean McCluskey. Sean McCluskey, you should also know, was at Commonwealth Ventures, which is a political operation. And what I find so notable is that if you go to the actual link for Sean McCluskey now, you get a 404 error page. The founder of North Star Park Ventures, LLC, a consulting firm that provides strategic policy. He was listed there and now disappeared. And all these stories just cropping up about McCluskey now. It's kind of interesting. It's very much like Joe Biden, that now that these people are indicted, all these other people are going to say, oh, yeah, we knew this guy was trash all along. But, you know, you're not hearing it in the media, are you? Isn't it notable that Gavin Newsom's chief of staff indicted? Isn't it notable that a chief of staff in New York to a governor is being prosecuted for being a spy for the Chinese Communist Party, but we're not hearing any of that stuff, are we? We're only hearing about the Republicans. We're only hearing about the corruption of Donald Trump. One of the major issues of bias in the press is what they choose to cover and not to cover. What they choose to not cover is exceedingly notable. And in my experience, having been at CNN and at Fox for a number of years, you really is a wake-up call on what they choose not to cover. CNN and MSNBC will not cover stories that show Democratic corruption. And frankly, Fox, to a degree, won't cover a lot of Republican corruption stories. It's true. But the media gets outraged about Fox News. The media never gets outraged about the rest of the media. There might be some concern about Fox's coverage of things, but you never actually hear this sort of coverage when it comes to the Democrats and corruption. Senator Tammy Duckworth, I believe it's her chief of staff, was accused of pretending to be a lawyer to get a criminal illegal alien released from an ICE facility. That person's now being indicted. There are a lot of indictments coming down against Democrats these days. And you know, to the extent the Democrats say anything about it, they're like, oh, well, this is just political prosecution from Donald Trump. And not really. I mean, these are actual crimes. These are actual crimes. And I find it notable how so much of the mainstream media, how the CNNs of the world, how the MSNBCs of the world, the ABC, CBS, NBC, PBS, they don't really want to cover these stories. If it was a Republican, you know, if a Republican dog catcher in BFE, Georgia gets arrested and makes some racist remark to the black police officer, you got CNN camera crews on Capitol Hill who shove a microphone in a Republican senator's face and say, will you denounce this Republican from BFE, Georgia, and what he said? And the Republican politicians, I've never even heard of the guy. But it doesn't matter. Republicans have to answer questions, but no Democrat ever has to answer questions. It's remarkable. When you see it, it's kind of, aha. Now, side note to all of this, I want to play this clip, this from Chris Matthews, of all people, who they've brought him back now after all these years on MSNBC. Listen to this.
How does the Democratic Party, which is trying to talk to working class people again, but are all, you know, highly educated and they live in urban places, how do they bridge that divide like he did?
Can I answer that question?
Yeah, of course you can.
It's a tough question.
This is my show.
I don't know the whole answer. Josh Shapiro said, all right, we're going to stop this a little bit. We're going to get rid of the law that you have to be some college graduate to get a job in the state government. Pennsylvania doesn't have that law anymore. That's the first step you can make and say, we're all running for office. We're all seeking office here. It isn't just for college grads. And I think there's a lot to that, you know? The town versus gown has gotten to be political. The people that didn't get a college are voting for Trump. Why? Because of snobbery and attitude. As we say in Philly,
what do you think?
Attitude.
Snobbery. By the way, there is a great deal of snobbery in the Democratic Party. A great deal of snobbery. They really don't. They claim to be a party of the working class. They don't like the working class. It was those awfuls, the affluent white female urban liberals, who were harassing the working class men in grocery stores who weren't wearing masks during COVID. They've only gotten emboldened since then. It's kind of wild to watch the biases of the media play out in the coverage of these corruption stories and the people they elevate and all sorts of it. It really is out there. It really is bias. And it really is disturbed. You know, Jack Schlossberg is thinking of running for Congress. Jack Schlossberg is the grandson of Ted Kennedy, No. Caroline Kennedy's son. The Andrew Stiles over the Washington Free Beacon. Jack Schlossberg, the sentient boat shoe and semi-employed TikTok user, is running for Congress in New York. It was bound to happen. The 32-year-old Democrat belongs to the Kennedy dynasty, that inexplicably beloved menagerie of goon-faced Habsburgian freaks, Nantucket bros, chronic alcoholics, and bloated sex pests. Schlossberg, a mentally deranged internet addict who cracks jokes about guzzling Jew blood, has sought to inject the storied Kennedy brand with Gen Z flair. Schlossberg is undeterred by the fact that no one really wants him to run for Congress, not even his own mother. Why shouldn't he be in politics? He has a family pedigree that most mainstream journalists would consider impressive. He's the great-grandson of Joseph Kennedy, the notorious Nazi sympathizer. He is the sole grandson of John F. Kennedy, the famed pervert who preyed on teenage interns while serving as president of the United States. His mother, Carolyn Bouvier Kennedy, is the cousin of Arnold Schwarzenegger's ex-wife. His great-uncle, his former Senator Ted Kennedy, killed a woman with his car and sexually assaulted a waitress with former Senator Chris Dodd. The Washington Free Beacon predicted Schlossberg would run for office back in 2020 after his cousin, former Representative Joseph P. Kennedy III, lost the Democratic primary for U.S. Senate. It was a great day for America, but the Kennedy clan is full of rich weirdos with nothing better to do than exploit the media's obsession with their dead relatives. An attempted comeback was inevitable, and the media were more than happy to play along. Schlossberg's campaign launch coincided with an exclusive softball interview on MSNBC and a lengthy New York Times profile that included a supportive quote from Dave Letterman, a family friend, and a vintage-style photo montage designed to resemble old footage of JFK. It's worth noting that not all journalists were so obliging. It fills me with rage that this guy thinks he should be my congressman, wrote Josh Barrow, a New York-based podcast host. Semaphore social media director Josh Billison noted the egregious crease lines in the American and New York flags he clearly just ordered off Amazon before the campaign photo launch. The Kennedy Scion is running to succeed the outgoing Jerry Nadler, who represents the state's 12th district covering Midtown Manhattan and Central Park. Nadler's longtime aide, State Assemblyman Michael Lasher, is also running in the Democratic primary. Nadler told CNN in September he'd prefer to be replaced by a candidate who, unlike Schlossberg, has actually accomplished something in life. The evidence is overwhelming. Schlossberg should not be taken seriously as a person, much less a politician. He reportedly sleeps on a bed comprising 2 massage tables covered in shark-patterned sheets that he has had since 8th grade. He has described the voluptuous Hollywood starlet Sydney Sweeney as not hot. Although he has 3 degrees from Harvard and Yale, Schlossberg has little experience when it comes to a real job that doesn't involve standing next to his mom. He recently worked at a surf shop in Hawaii and wrote 7 opinion columns for Vogue magazine during the 2024 election. His final contribution, The Keys to @Kamala HQ's Viral Success, was published 2 weeks before Kamala Harris lost. Schlossberg didn't react well to Trump's election. He appeared to suffer a mental breakdown on social media that even the Kennedys described as an embarrassing earthquake of cringe content. He jokes about having a baby with Usha Vance, wife of Vice President Vance, and asked his followers if she was way hotter than his grandmother, the fashion icon Jackie Kennedy Onassis. This is a guy who's also been described as a flamboyant homosexual. He himself describes himself as very straight, but concedes people often wonder about that. And the New York Times is giving him a profile because he's a Democrat. The New York Times has spent more covering this weirdo trying to run for Congress than they've covered Gavin Newsom's chief of staff getting indicted, Xavier Becerra's chief of staff getting indicted, Tammy Duckworth's chief of staff getting arrested. They spent more energy on elevating the Jeffrey Epstein allegations against Donald Trump and promoting this weirdo running for Congress because he's a Kennedy. They don't have time to cover the Democratic corruption that you guys would know about if the media actually did their job instead of serving as propagandists for the Democratic Party. Dwayne and Gina, thank you for your $40 donation. Ken, Richard, Gary, Benson Heating and Air, thank you all. Penny, James, thank you for your donations. I see these names scrolling. Randy and Davis, thank you very much. Great generosity from people. If you text donate to 33777, you can donate to Hungry for Days, the Thanksgiving effort. We've got 1,281 people. We have donated more than $100,000. I'm just scrolling the names across the country. Thank you all so much. The level of generosity from so many of you. A lot of anonymous donations. You know, I will take it. Just thank you all so much. We are raising money around the country to help people this holiday season. We do this every year. We're a little behind pace this year, and I'm not surprised, actually. And this gets to the economic data. You know, I was in Las Vegas this past weekend and noticed that this time of year is usually pretty slammed, and it wasn't. There's actually a report in the Wall Street Journal over the weekend about people are kind of using it as a harbinger of things to come, that tourism is down. Now, honestly, though, Vegas has gotten really expensive for middle-class families, and people are kind of priced out of being able to go there. But it's not just there. Airlines are saying they're seeing a downtrend in airline purchases for travel, rental car agencies as well. And it just people, there are people who have generous hearts right now who can't be as generous as they have been because of economic circumstances right now. If you're able to donate and can, please text donate to 33777. I'll send you back the link. You can also go to ericthanksgiving.com, ERICK Thanksgiving.com, and you can donate there online, and I really appreciate it. Your generosity every year we do this always overwhelms me and amazes me. You guys are so generous and are helping so many people this holiday season who otherwise couldn't put food on the table for Thanksgiving. So thank you very much. On behalf of me and my team and Hungry for a Day and my family, I really thank you for your generosity. Please text donate to 33777. When we come back, the implications of a nation and population decline and net negative migration. First, I got to tell you about my bank, Old Glory Bank. They could be your bank as well, oldglorybank.com/Eric. You sign up at oldglorybank.com/Eric today. You can get a checking account, a savings account. If you're a business, you can get business checking. They've got great hands-on business analysts to help you if you need loans. They're a full-service bank, even though they're online. You can do CDs and mortgages, oldglorybank.com/Eric. They're a bank by conservatives, for conservatives. They're now the fastest-growing bank in the country. And they were started to combat the debanking trends that were happening to conservatives in the country. They've just taken a life of their own. They're such good people. oldglorybank.com/Eric. oldglorybank.com/ERICK. Sign up with Old Glory Bank today. Get a checking account, a savings account. If you're a veteran, first responder, active duty military, they waive a lot of fees for you on their premium accounts with interest-bearing checking and higher savings rates. oldglorybank.com/Eric. They could be your new bank. Don't forget custodial accounts for your kids as well. It's an online bank, great for your kids. You can even deposit cash. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply. oldglorybank.com/Eric. Hello there, it's Eric Erickson here. The phone number, 877-973-7425. I'm going to be here tomorrow, but I don't know that I'm going to have access to phones. I'm going to actually be broadcasting from Samford University. My son, I'm taking him over. He wants to be an architect. He has, it's kind of wild. My daughter always wanted to be an artist and in fashion until she realized, I'm me and that world is so progressive. She wasn't sure she'd fit in, and now she's doing accounting and finance. My son never went through the I want to be an astronaut phase or I want to be a policeman phase. He has wanted to be an architect for as long as I can remember, and got to work on a math. So we're actually doing another tour of Samford University tomorrow, their architecture program. He badly wants to go to Samford and in the architecture program, and I'm hoping he can get there. And got to work on math. He's a good kid, though. My gosh, has a heart for the Lord and loves classical music. Queen, AC/DC, and classical music. That is his thing. He's actually, I think, doing a senior thesis on how real music ended with Vivaldi's death. Something like that. Bach is kind of like Bach and Chopin are his thing, but Anyway, so I'm going to be broadcasting the show from there tomorrow, and I don't know what the setup will be for me to be able to get in to the call screening program, but I will be here live tomorrow for you guys, covering all the breaking news, just doing it from a university, which is going to be interesting. Now, you should know there's a story that has just hit on the New York Times. Michael Schmidt at the New York Times has a story. A 17-year-old with a homeless parent wanted money for braces and ended up having sex for money with powerful men. She wants the public to have a fuller understanding of how she was victimized. One of the men she's naming is former Congressman Matt Gaetz. Hoping to buy braces to fix her teeth, she falsely advertised herself in 2017 as 18 years old on a website that matches men looking for companionship with young women looking to make money. What followed would set off a chain of events that would have a dramatic impact on her life and help upend the political career of one of the men she would encounter, Representative Matt Gaetz, the Florida Republican. Mr. Gaetz was investigated by the Justice Department for child sex trafficking but never charged. Following the election last year of President Trump, he was President Trump's first choice to serve as Attorney General and resigned from Congress and withdrew from consideration under a storm of scrutiny. A bipartisan Health Ethics Committee investigation later determined there was substantial evidence he had sex with the 17-year-old, and the report included testimony from the girl about how she was paid by Mr. Gaetz. For all the public furor, little attention has been given to the story of the girl, how she came to be exploited, and how she has coped with what happened to her and the ensuing political scandal. Now, you should know, I can tell you as a former lawyer, it does not matter if a minor says they're of age. If they are a minor, they're a minor, and you go to jail, and she was a minor. I don't know about the age of consent in Florida at the time, but this was a 17-year-old homeless high schooler. He now has a TV show and has become increasingly anti-Semitic. Now, while all of that is happening, and you should know that story has dropped, and if you care about the Epstein stuff, you should care about this sort of stuff. You should ignore the letter next to his name and pay attention to the awfulness of it. Now, I gotta switch to something else, though. There is the story now about net negative migration in the United States. It's quite a thing that we have kind of crossed this Rubicon, that in the United States of America, according to Homeland Security, President Trump and Secretary Noem have jump-started an agency that was hamstrung and barred from doing its job for 4 years. For the first time in 5 decades, the United States is on track for net negative migration. The foreign-born population has declined by 2.2 million this year, which includes 1.6 million illegal aliens who voluntarily self-deported and 555,000 deportations. That's good in that they did their job, and in doing their job, they got rid of a lot of illegal immigrants who the Biden administration insisted could not be gotten rid of. There is also a concurrent problem, though. The birth rate of the American citizen is negative. In other words, we have net negative migration, which I think we can all support. Job well done to the president, getting rid of so many illegal aliens. It's been measurably impacted in population data. But there actually is a problem, too, and that is that Americans aren't having kids. Too many women have been told they can have their cake and eat it too, put off having kids until it's too late for them to have kids, get career invested. As opposed to being moms, they don't want to have kids. Others are told it's too expensive, it's too costly. Rule of thumb, if you're young and listening to me right now, I don't know that I know what young is anymore now that I'm at my age. If you're in your 20s, if you are young and married, if you are young and thinking of getting married, I need to tell you a secret. This is just going to be our secret. You are never, ever, ever going to feel like you're financially in a place to have kids. You never are. And those of you who insist on waiting, you're never going to have kids. Or you're not going to have the number of kids you want. We have 2 kids. We have 2 good kids. I'm very blessed and fortunate. There's always time for them to go off the rails. I hope they won't. If we could have had another kid, my wife and I, we would have had another kid. We couldn't because of my wife's health. I have friends who, they've got kids, and a lot of our friends have 2 kids. Some of our friends have very large families. Some have adopted, and I'm just like, I grew up and had 2 older sisters. I was the baby. I'm the smartest one. I'm the perfect one in the family. It kills my sisters. I'm so perfect, precious, and smart. They just don't like it. They can deal with it. They're listening right now. Well, I had 2 older sisters. My mom just had her sister. Her parents had a number of children that were stillborn. They struggled to have kids. I don't know. Having that third child is there's the middle child syndrome for certain. Even my middle sister would laugh about being the middle child, but having the kid who can be the peacemaker among the other 2 kids, there's something to be said for that. There's something to be said for having multiple children. There's something to be said for not having just the one child. I've got a lot of friends of mine who are single kids, and the burden on being a single child with aging parents, it's something. And I see it now with my friends who are in their 40s or 50s, and they've got elderly parents, and they're it. They are the one child, and they got to take care of their aging parents. And I've just got to tell you, having multiple kids is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. I wish we could have had more. And now our son is a junior in high school, and my wife is already getting emotional about thinking about him moving off to college. Because he's the baby, and boys and their moms, boys and moms have special connections that girls and dads have. And my daughter, I'm fortunate, she's at college here at home and comes home regularly. I see her all the time. And our son wants to go off 3.5 hours away where we're not going to see him every day. And I mean, it really is something to think about it. And it does make me sad thinking about it. It makes my wife really sad thinking about it. But we as a country are in a situation now where we've got net negative migration. We've got a declining birth rate in the country. People aren't having kids. At some point, we have to have immigrants to sustain our country. You may not like that idea. I certainly want them to come here and to be Americans. I want them to assimilate and to take the best of America and add the best of their culture to our society. I love the idea that the taco is now as ubiquitous as an American hamburger. We have Taco Tuesdays. We eat hamburgers in my house and tacos and quesadillas, and it says they're all as American as anything else. The assimilation of food is a sign of the assimilation of culture. They're all part and parcel of being an American. You know, when I fly Delta. I don't have the money to fly private. One day maybe. But when I fly Delta, and I notice that their meals in first class, I do fly first class. A lot of it, they have a lot of Italian food, and I love Italian food. Italian food is as American as anything else. I make a great bolognese sauce. I make homemade pasta. It's a sign of assimilation that foods have assimilated into American culture. And it's also kind of a sign of the standoffishness of some cultures, how they haven't assimilated. There's a lot of great food from the Middle East, and you don't see a lot of Middle East becoming ubiquitous American culture, not because it's not good or it's weird or it's hard to make, but because a lot of Middle Easterners who came to this country, they've not assimilated into the United States. The way, for example, in the British Empire, Indian cuisine is the best part of British cuisine. In London, you can find an amazing bowl of curry because the Indian immigrants into Great Britain have assimilated as part of that empire and have fundamentally improved the cuisine of the British. My gosh, beans on toast is like height of British cuisine, but you add in the Indians and you get curry, and it's fantastic stuff. We have to, as a country, come to terms with the fact that our population is in decline in such a way that we got to figure out how to offset it. Either we need more Americans having kids and a lot of kids, or we got to have immigration. It's great to have net negative migration in this country, but when you don't have people left to be your bartenders and your waiters, to be your nurses, to be the people who do cut your grass, to be the people who deliver the mail, to be the people who run the cash register at your local shop, to be the people who are the bus boys, to be the people who stock shelves. We have an aging population. Where are our nurses and doctors going to come from? If we're not replacing Americans with Americans, they're going to have to come from abroad. So there is a complication to the H-1B visa program situation. There is a complication to the immigration situation. And my problem is the left. The left has made you more likely to be hostile to immigration because they insisted in salad bowl migration instead of melting pot migration. They didn't want people to come to the United States and assimilate. They wanted people to just come to the United States and bring their culture with them. And that has caused people to be hostile to immigration. Listen, I want everybody who wants to be an American to come to America. I want them all to come here. But then I want them to learn to speak English, and I want them to learn how to buy fireworks on the 4th of July and blow up fireworks in their backyard celebrating being an American. I want them to see the American flag and get emotional seeing that flag flying in their front yard, knowing what it means to be an American. I do not want the Memdanis who come here and hate America. I do not want the people who come here and say, I wish I was actually in China. They're better. You go to China. Don't be here. I want the immigrant from Nigeria who wants to come here and instead of being a phone scammer, go work for the phone company and get invested emotionally in the NFL and Major League Baseball and barbecuing and Joey Chestnuts binge on hot dogs every 4th of July. I want the guy from Vietnam who's going to come here and work for Uber and save money and buy a house and get a tech job and love the United States. And I want the family from India to come here and become American and make me roti and curry because they live next door and they're great neighbors and they're great contributors to the community. I want immigrants in this country. We are a nation of immigrants. This idea that we're all blood and soil, yeah, we are. It means something to be an American, and I want you to come here and join that. But this idea that it's just a bunch of white people and we can only have white people in this country, no. I want the people who come to America because of the ideal, but I want them to come for that ideal, and I want them to embrace that ideal, and I want them to assimilate into this country as Americans where they're not an Italian American and they're not an African American and they're not an Indian American. They are an American. And we need to figure out the assimilation issue because we're not replacing ourselves and we're not bringing in people to sustain our country. And I don't want our country to die. The lifeblood of our country is our people, but it needs to be the people who love the country. And that doesn't need to be the native born. It can be the immigrant willing to walk here on foot to get here because it means something to that person to be an American. Frankly, there are a lot of immigrants here who are more pro-American than a lot of progressive white people, and I'd rather the immigrant from Central and South America or Africa who's dying to get to this country to be an American and wave the American flag than the white progressive who sees the American flag and thinks it's a symbol of racism. We got to figure it out, though. Otherwise, we're a nation in decline. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number 877-973-7425, except the phone lines are now closed because, well, we've only got a few minutes left on the program. By the way, one more pitch for you today. If you will, text donate to 33777 and support our effort to raise money for Thanksgiving meals for families. You should know the U.S. Department of Justice is now suing to block California from enacting its Prop 50 congressional district map. They filed a complaint in California federal court targeting the map drawn to benefit Democrats, approved by voters. The Trump administration is asking the court to ban the use of the map because it accuses California of racial gerrymandering in violation of the Constitution by using race as a factor to favor Hispanic voters. I actually think they're going to have a long shot trying to stop this California effort, and I think that California was pretty clever in how it drew the maps and did not explicitly use race. If anything, the Democrats can argue they used partisanship, which is the Republican defense of racial redistricting. When Republicans draw districts that lump in a lot of, for example, black voters in the South, Republicans say, we didn't do it because they're black, we did it because they're Democrat. And that's perfectly legal. Democrats can do the same thing in California and say, we didn't lump these people together because they're Hispanic, we lumped these people together because they vote Democrat. And we want Democratic maps. And the voters approved this effort. This is a long shot case for the Trump administration. They may find a sympathetic district court judge, but I think they're going to have problems running this up to the Supreme Court because it does seem pretty clear California used not racial districting lines, but partisan districting lines, and that's perfectly constitutional. But good old college try from the Trump administration to try to stop this coming from California. Now, let me tell you about my Eden Pure thunderstorm. I've got one in my travel bag as I head off to Alabama tomorrow because it's Alabama. EdenPureDeals.com. It's not just Alabama, it's Birmingham. But now you can wipe out odors with the Eden Pure thunderstorm. You get 3 of them for less than $200. You save $200. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code again, ERIC3, ERICK3 at EdenPureDeals.com. You get 3 of them. They collect dust and pollen and pet dander. They wipe out 99.9% of bacteria and viruses, and they eliminate all odors, including those in Birmingham, if there are bad odors there. There are never bad odors in South Alabama. That's God's country. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code ERIC3, ERICK3. Save $200. Get them for less than $200. Wipe out odors wherever they are.